Welcome, 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 everyone. Today on our Circle Live, we are going to be talking about flower essence vacation formulas. And, there's kind of two ways that you could go with this idea. We wanted to talk about essences that might help you unwind and relax when you're literally on vacation. But then there's the other idea about when you've been doing a deep internal process, and maybe you're ready for a rest and integration cycle as part of your flower essence therapy process. So there's two different ways we can look at it. I am looking forward to hearing what you all are going to bring to this conversation. And I wanted to start out by telling you something that Ro and I are very excited about. We are getting ready to launch our Bach Flower Foundations course. It is a certificate course that will get you absolutely well trained up on the Bach flowers, and so that you'll be able to use them for yourself, to your friends, to your family. This is what we're trying to do is build something where you get everything you really need to know about using them and a lot of detail on the Bach flowers, because they are foundational to our practice. We feel. And we feel there's a lot of depth and capacity in these essences that we can be bringing to bear beyond that very short description that we might know of. We're bringing in aspects of modern thinking about different emotional states and all the different essences. So hope you check it out. You can find out more at Flower Essence Studies. The course opens for self-study on August 29th, and we'll be doing live sessions starting on September 12th. If for another week or so, we have a killer early bird special that gives you a really nice discount on the course. So I hope you check it out. And for those who are getting started with their flower essence practice, there is no better place to start. So thank you and welcome. Um, do we have anyone who has like a burning thought on some essences that they wanted to tackle? Like which angle of this should we take first? The literal vacation side angle or the flower essence therapy angle? Does anybody have any thoughts that they wanted to kind of get the conversation rolling on, what they'd prefer to talk about or hear? Please, Ruth.
No, I would just suggest that I'm so happy that Lauren is here because I recently heard her talk about vacation formulas and some approaches that she has heard before from other teachers that she studied with. So maybe you could bring that in, Lauren. So great that you're here.
Hi Ruth. Hi everyone. It's good to be here. Are you talking about when I mentioned how Cynthia had sent some essences forward? Okay, well I don't know if I'll share it. I'm not it feels different than what we're saying, but it is an interesting approach, which is Cynthia Kemp, Athena Kemp shared once that she worked with a client who traveled a lot and wanted essences for the time, sessions that she wasn't going to be able to meet. But so what Cynthia did was she would, say the person was going to be gone for 3 months, she would prepare three different essences for that person. And, she would prepare the first essence, make that one, and then she would go on to the next, even though she didn't know where that person was going to what's going to be coming up on like month 2 or month 3. She prepared three essences using her intuitive method, which is her way of working. And then she sent them all to that person, and that person would just work with the first bottle for the first month, and then the second and the third. And she had really amazing results with that. And that was, I don't think it was just a one-time thing. I think she had learned that and for Cynthia working with clients. And I think something that was beautiful about that is just, first of all, the sense of, I don't know, the way for me of touching in with the way the essences are sort of I just feel like they have a way of understanding, knowing, resonating with our field in maybe like a much bigger way. And so like the first essence is kind of here, but there's some other resonances coming that they connected with. Anyway, that just stuck with me. And I recently went away on a trip for about a month where I wasn't going to bring all my essences, and I made two essences in that way. Um, and the second essence, I told Ruth I was kind of chuckling about it because I was doing this really last minute, and I took a picture of the first essence, the bottles, and then I took a picture of the second essence so I could remember what they were. And then later on, when I went to look at the picture, I couldn't see any of the names of the essences on the second. For some reason, the image was completely blurred, and it was a really humorous and also just delightful way. I think I felt kind of playful, where the essences were like, "You don't need to know what these are yet. Like you're just working with the first group of them, and the second ones are going to come in, and just trust that the ones that you just selected are the ones." And so it was, I don't know, I felt very held, even though I wasn't exactly knowing. And again, that it was a really beautiful way of kind of journeying, going away in time, preparing some essences. So anyway, I think it's slightly out of, I think, the scope, and Kathleen, of which you were presenting the idea of vacation essences, but it was a really interesting and I think, I don't know, profound way to maybe think about experimenting with that and seeing, working with essences on a, in that way. So.
Sounds really fun to be able to have phases of the vacation, right?
Yeah, phases, and I feel like I don't know, just really pulling you out of that space of, I think, knowing a sense of knowing that there's like a journey that's happening. Like you're journeying, you're going away for this amount of time. There's these essences that are taking you on a journey, and you don't know where they're going, but that there's some sense of connectivity and that deep trusting in that process. And for me, deep trusting in the essences and their own wisdom in guiding you on that process.
Thank you, Lauren. Mary, please.
I'm so glad Lauren spoke first because she just gave me so many ideas that I didn't even think I had when I started. And it because it's kind of tie into the travel piece. I forget that vacations aren't, because it's been a few years here since vacations really included travel for me, that I forgot about the days when Ian White used to come to Michigan to teach, and we would pick him up, or he would be dropped off and come to our town, and he would have this little preparation he had ready for himself, and he had his travel lessons, and he had this little ritual that he did, and it was like you would see him after getting off of a 24-hour airline flight from Australia, and you'd think this man's got to be dead. And he'd say, "Can I have a half an hour before before dinner?" And I would go, "Yeah, I need 24." And he would just go take his essences and take a 10-minute nap, and back to life at the party again. It was great. It was so there was that fun part of and I never travel without some sort of travel lessons, whether I'm going on an airplane. Sometimes I travel with everybody's. I mean, they have such a different. Some of them have different qualities, and there's just sometimes I have to do Alaskan. That that one just grounds me in a different way. And I but if I'm changing time zones, definitely I like the bush. But that's, that's one way I see vacation is travel.
Totally good point. It's really important to support yourself, your nervous system, your energy field, as you're dealing with the reality of vacation, which might end up being on some level, traveling, whether it's a car trip or a plane trip, being able to arrive there all in one piece, as it were. It's very, very valuable. Yeah, thanks for bringing that in. Yeah, I love the I love the Alaskan travel ease also. Definitely rely on it to keep everything intact, as you go over all these lines and time zones and rattled on planes and all of those things. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I thought when you suggested the theme was the fact that it's known that people who are in, let's say, working the corporate world, when they take a vacation, they would get sick because there's so much on the go, 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 go. And when they stop, sometimes, they can't really do that transition in a way that they stay well and healthy. And so, what can we do in that first stage in terms of supporting people to get out of a mode that they're in compulsively and shift modes, for instance? That perhaps would be chapter one, right? Or bottle number one.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea of having, phased formulas, and what you were bringing in about Cynthia's work, where she created essentially phased formulas. I wonder if she was, integrating her astrological framework into that, because she could be looking at somebody's transits, even just something so simple as looking at where the sun is illuminating different parts in your chart over the course of 1 month and the next and the next. You might be thinking, okay, in this month this is probably going to be up for them, or lit up, and then the next month might be a different experience. Mary.
That brought me back to some traveling I used to do, which was for sort of a work. It was kind of a half vacation, half work experience. It was an annual convention that wasn't my convention. I was going with my husband, and he was the one working. So it was kind of a vacation for me, but it was early in my days of flower essences, and I couldn't be that far. I didn't have that many in the beginning, so I couldn't be away from a whole kit. So I would pack up a mini kit of each one of the. I made a mini travel kit of the bush essences, and one year I traveled with Paralanda, and the one. I mean, it was just back in those days. And invariably, there would be someone at the convention or that we knew that we were working with that would get sick because their immune systems were so low from long hours of travel and work, and they usually ended up at my door. So it was kind of fun. I mean, not fun. I was the one sick one year, but boy, was I glad to have those essences.
It's a real balancing act, figuring out like which essences do you bring when you're going somewhere. You might that might be another really great reason to have, makeup bottles of a travel formula for this and a travel formula for that, where you might be thinking, okay, this is a way that I can go off track and have a formula like pre-blended for that, rather than having to bring all the little bottles, which nowadays probably are not as easy to, schlep through airports. The rules are different now than they used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other thing that comes to mind that I feel is so important, and I think for all of us who are sensitive beings, it really is that there are essences for us, but there may be a really good thing to take a kit that also has essence to do some clearing in the hotel rooms that you're going to stay, in the motel rooms that you're going to stay. And that also makes me remember Cynthia Athena Camp, because she would say, if I don't do some clearing, I'll have other people's dreams. So she would always do clearing on the pillows, especially, so as not to have other people's dreams. And so, yeah, Kathleen may suggest some combinations for that.
Well, it's a great point. Let's get the hive mind going on this one. What do we all like to use for clearing a space that maybe isn't our usual space? Even when you're traveling in a car, it's really quite nice to have something with you. I'd love to hear from all of you who are maybe shyer. You can always, if you don't want to come on camera or raise your hand or anything like that, you're really welcome here too. And then go ahead and you can put your ideas in the chat if you don't feel like to come on a live show like this with people that maybe you feel a little uncomfortable. But everyone is welcome. So go ahead and pop it in the chat, and then I'll read it out for you if you want to. So,
And I'll put an
Ruth,
add-on
please.
to that. You mentioned traveling in a car. If you're traveling in a car with kids, you really want to have a spray for the car.
for everyone's sanity. So you've got, I mean, Travelese is one that I lean on, and that is both in spray and in drops version. So I think about that. And because it has so much, good clearing energy, it's got like black tourmaline and all sorts of good stuff in there. I sometimes just kind of use that as my all around clear space kind of essence. I tend to be a little bit more of a minimalist when I travel, but I love traveling with maximalists as long as they are willing to carry their own luggage. Um, but for those who bring lots of things, what do you bring to help clear a space?
I use I use a lot of I I use a lot of bush spray, space clearing spray in my local environments, but when I'm going into a strange environment, I use purification from Alaska. I like that one as a kind of a okay. Let's get all the things I don't jive with in alignment with me, or me in alignment with what I'm not jiving with. That's and those come in small bottles. And I also like the fact that they have that delicate fragrance that is so appealing in case there's a musty, it does it's a double dip on that one for me.
Yeah, and what Jane always explained to me, Jane Bell always explained to me is that when those sprays were she was creating the sprays that having that essential oil in there kind of helps to hold the vibration in the room a little bit longer, kind of helps it to hold together a little bit with a longer frequency than if you're using the spray without any oils in it at all. So I've certainly experienced that where I feel the difference between having just a little bit of essential oil. Um, in it, as well as it just being such a nice little bonus, where you feel like, oh, get yourself a little shot of that, whatever the oil is, because it's really pleasant and it shifts your mind.
Yeah, and
It's more enjoyable.
purification specifically has black spruce, so it brings a bit of that forest energy.
Yeah. Yeah, that one's really good. So what else do we like to use to clear a space, to get more comfortable in this space? Do you remember, Lauren, was it you who was mentioning that Cynthia puts, or Ruth, you were talking about Cynthia putting it on her pillow. I wonder what she's using for that. Do you know? Okay.
No, I can't remember. I was probably translating the class and I didn't take notes. So,
Right. Your brain was busy doing a different
yeah,
job. Yeah,
yeah.
Lauren.
Yeah, I don't remember what she said either, but I know she always mentioned that she traveled with the desert crisis emergency formula. And I feel like we've already mentioned the Travelese. I kind of like to travel with like one or two that I take on the plane with me. I put them in little teeny little bottles. And I also the FES Yes formula. I love that one. I put that in my water and keep that. So those might be if I'm kind of traveling minimally and like take one or two of those plus like another essence with me. And I also like going into a space sometimes if it's not in a spray, if I'm not bringing all that, I would just put it in a cup of water, and I've done that and leave it in a hotel room and just put my essence in some water, and I change that regularly. And then another thing I like to do in spaces, again, I don't usually travel with sprays, but although that's been shifting, um, to kind of like, I don't know, just make a little space where I put my essences, a little altar, like I usually bring a little image with me. Sometimes it's a flower essence card or something for me. It's not necessarily an altar. I guess it is. It's sort of very informal though, but something that I put that's pretty central in the space that I'm looking at that has my essence, and it feels really I don't know, for me it's really grounding of like my putting my own presence in that space. And so that's I think a little different than clearing the energy, but a little more maybe of grounding it for myself. And so that's something else that I do when I'm traveling and wanting some sense of grounding. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Also, when you're talking about the Yarrow environmental formula, it made me think that you do the clearing and you also define the boundaries. So there's the clearing and then there's the intention. So you define the boundaries and then you can also put an intention. So if you have an intention of deep restorative rest, then you might want to take something for that and add. And one thing that I would suggest to this little altar is having a bell or, one of those pin things just for sound. That always helps.
Yeah, I like that. And you can also, Jane taught me doing different space clearing techniques. And so you can put essences on your hand and blow them into the space. You don't need to have a spray bottle. You can add that into the space just with your breath, or with clapping. You can have the essences on your hand and like clap the space to help clear it. And it really does a beautiful job of releasing the crud out of the space. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can attest to that because one time I traveled with my kids for a month and more, and we were staying in many places. And every time I arrived, I would do this place clearing of my room. And they would all flock to my room and say, Mom, do the same thing to our rooms because this one feels so much better.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, they would be much more attuned. That is cool. What a lovely experience. Yeah. Mary.
You mentioning traveling with the kids. I am to the point now where the only person I travel with is my husband. And well, that's not true because we do travel with the kids sometimes, but um, and he has a lot of travel anxiety. He gets very ungrounded very easily. So I have to always have something by Flower Fornia. The Bush Emergency is the one that he relates is effective the most for him. And but we always have to have something to uh, work with the anxiety that gets that develops, and that quick fix kind of stuff is essential in my purse. I also travel with I'll stick rocks in his pocket, but I usually have in my altar. There's always a black tourmaline, just something for real grounding, tiny.
Yeah, I think a lot of us travel with a rock or two in our pockets. I pretty much always have somebody on hand.
Wonderful.
The strange things that we put into the X-ray tray. Um, yeah, I've got a quartz with it's tourmalated quartz, and that one is just so nice to carry with me to help shield from all the stuff. But yeah, I had a few notes of some essences I wanted to talk about, but yeah, the gems are really important to help us to stay in our bodies, to stay grounded. And tourmaline or black tourmaline is one of the primary essences along those lines. I was also thinking about, the quartzes in general as being these magnifiers of our energy and helping to clear kind of all-purpose clearing. And so something different types of quartz might be an interesting option in addition to the tourmaline. Ruth, do you have a thought on some gems that you like to use in this context?
Well, perhaps also creating some kind of container for restoration, for joy. Like, I don't really have a formula, but when you ask, I think, for instance, of opal that helps to bring all the colors when we're kind of dulled by our routines and obligations, etc., and we want to bring this sense of renewal. Opal could be an interesting one. It's one that comes to mind. If there is a need to relax into a feeling of safety, Larimar could be a wonderful gem elixir that's also related to the dolphin energy. What else do others think of? What are the other gems or even flowers that you can think of?
I'm thinking about the last conversation that Ro and I had with Nicholas Pearson, and he loves spectralite. for clearing, and he tends to wear a bracelet and has that around a lot. And I think if I'm remembering correctly, Steve Johnson talked about it as like clearing your energetic windshield, like all the things that have sort of stuck on you that are impacting your ability to see or feel clearly. That spectralite might be a good one to offer in. Thank you, Ruth. Thanks for those ideas. I was really thinking about some environmental essences for being completely on point for this topic. Even from the very beginning, Dr. Bach's rock water. If you think about the whole concept of making an essence from a naturally occurring spring, it has this energy of like emerging up out of the earth into the light. And so it has this ability to be flexible and fluid and not have a predetermined plan, just to be able to go with it. And isn't that a lot of what travel is about? Is sort of like you might have a plan, but there might be obstacles and you just flow around them. I think it would help, especially Mary, like you were talking about with your husband having these, the anxieties about all the stuff, and you are out of control when you're in a travel experience. It's like you have to let go of a lot of control when you step into an airport. All sorts of things can happen, and then you get on a plane where you can't even, see who's driving the thing. So for people who feel a sense of safety by being in control, this is pushing every single one of your buttons. And so rock water, I think, could be really appropriate. You know, does that resonate?
I love it. Thanks for the suggestion because the control issue is definitely the issue. So it's yeah, definitely. That's a great little one to slip in.
Well, because it just sets this tone, it creates this envelope that the formula can rest in. That's how Steve Johnson always explained the environmentals. It's like they're creating an energetic of the field, and then you can add flowers and you can add gems into it, but the environmental holds that space. And so, I was thinking of Rock Springs, which is, the Alaskan version of rock water, in that it's just a beautiful naturally occurring spring, but it has that energetic that maybe I was interpreting, Bach's rock water, that there's that hopefulness to it. There's that little like, oh, this can happen. I can emerge out of solid rock, finding the ways through, finding, and that's that travel journey. It's like, when something's not quite what you thought, you have to kind of dodge and weave a little bit and find your way out into the light. And when you get there, it's going to be great. So that's what I was thinking of. Has anyone ever thought about, or does anyone use the chalice well? That's one that, because I'm a Californian, I haven't been to Chalice Well before, but I like to feel like I've got that energetic of the Chalice Well, and that's traveling for me. Are there other environmentals that you like that you might think would be in alignment, for this particular aspect of holding this sense of safety? And please feel free to, those of
Yeah,
you with a background in the chat, put it in the chat.
I would
Please,
just
Ruth.
say to what you brought before, that one of the things that stayed with me that Steve would talk about the environmental essences was to bring elemental forces, and the environmental essences especially bringing that potency of elemental forces, bringing that movement, bringing that energy when there's a need for the release of stagnation, etc. There's that energy. Whereas the gem elixirs create the structure that holds everything within a certain quality of a structure, and the flowers bring the transformative touch. But that Portage Glacier, for instance, when you need a lot of discharge, let's say you're coming from a lot of stress and overwhelm, etc., and you want to discharge all the excess, that is a really useful one as well.
Mm. Yeah, so many of the Alaskan, they just have such potent energy. The quality of Portage Glacier just it feels like you're standing under that, in the midst of a waterfall where it's just everything, all that energies are just floating off of you. Um, I like a lot of them for to kind of create that place where the energies can be released. I was thinking about some of Jane Bell's essences, the Hawaiian essences for this kind of vacation vibe, because there's a lot of good stuff in those formulas that might be useful to think about, even if you kind of can't take a vacation, you might be able to have a vacation in a bottle. And that's certainly something that, as a practitioner, when I'm working with somebody and they've been doing a lot of hard, work of, you know, dealing with stuff and excavating stuff and processing stuff. And they've been working for months and months. And, sometimes you're just, too pooped to pop, and you need a break. And the sometimes the Hawaiian essences are just the right energetic. She has one particular one called Hula Moon, which is really a sweet essence. It's just this wonderful holding. It is like taking a little vacation, where you just feel supported and safe and looked out for, and you can just really relax. That's a really sweet essence. I'm gonna. Sabine has written in the chat. She says for environmental essences, she likes, and I'm going to mispronounce this so badly, Arunachala, the mountain, which gives deep rest. I'm curious, Sabine, what company, what essence line that one is coming from. It sounds lovely. I wonder particularly what country that might be coming from. Help us understand it a little bit better. Are there other essences that you are thinking of, or that any of you are thinking of, that might be useful for helping you to kind of unwind and sort of drop the burdens? Once you've imaginarily arrived at your destination, cleared your space, put your bags down, and then helping your system just integrate this new space.
Well, Shasta Daisy came into mind for me originally, which I don't know about relaxing, but just that sense of holding everything and that sense of integration. That one came up. And then immediately after that, I thought about chamomile and also just that gentleness of sort of soothing. And but those feel particular to me. I don't know if everybody else would find those, but just that uh, I think thinking about what is comforting for us, and that would be different for different people. What kind of essences feel like they bring in that sort of comforting, mothering, kind of soothing quality energy that could help one's physical, emotional, spiritual body settle. And so that feels like that could be different for a lot of people, what that feels like.
Right, because if you're of a different, there's all these different temperaments or different types of people, and for some people one thing is very relaxing, and for another person that wouldn't be relaxing in the least. And so you said Shasta Daisy and chamomile. What was the one in the middle that I missed?
Those were the two I said. I think in my mind I didn't say it out loud, but for some reason Buttercup was coming in, and there was something about Buttercup. Just I don't know. Something about Buttercup is just like it's just such a it just always feels just really accepting and gentle and brings warmth in a different way for me than like something. It helps me. It's a relaxing one for me. It's an integrating and relaxing one for me. So, but that's specific to me. That was just coming in a way of soothing kind of essence.
That's a really interesting use. I wouldn't have necessarily thought about it for soothing, but I mean, it tracks. I get it. I'm always thinking about it for when somebody doesn't feel significant or feel, like they belong somewhere or belong in a group. And yet for you, the buttercup helps you ease into relaxation. Do you feel like that's like a child part that really wants that holding, that care?
Yeah, I think all those essences that I just said, at least those two are definitely, I think ones you would give to children. And so for me, my moon feels very responsive in that way. But again, like other people, that would be like, no way, that's not at all comforting. So I think we'd have to go back to our own, um, yeah, or working with somebody, just really understanding what those nurturing qualities look like or what they need at that. I mean, that could just really be really different across the board. Um, yeah, those, yeah. So specific to me, I think.
Yeah, I appreciate how you're expressing that because you're so right. If I'm talking to somebody and we're talking about sort of a resting or vacation formula, and I've had a few clients for whom, I've talked to about, Hawaiian essences because my experience of that was, really soothing and relaxing and some people just don't like that vibe. An island is not their happy place. Okay, cool. Thank you for letting me know. And we're going to pivot and we're going to find a place that is your happy place. Like, where would you go to relax? Mountains. Okay, let's do that. Let's bring you a taste of home from there. And, certainly, I mean, I love chamomile. That completely gives me that same kind of vibe of just like, oh, just relax, just digest and rest. And the Shasta daisy isn't one that I would have for me that wouldn't be, but yeah, it's really different for everybody else. Does it help you? Does it help your mind to rest? Is that part of the rest dynamic for you?
I think so. And I think just like taking in so much stuff, like if I'm going to somewhere that's that where there's a lot coming in, like it helps me sort of be able to just like process. Like if I'm, on vacation, you're taking in an awful lot of stimulus. To me, it's just a very integrating. I don't know. I just have a really special that I love Shasta Daisy so much. So again, that's like specific to me, but there's something that integrating way of taking in everything that's happening around you to be able to settle, like to not be so um and again, that's specific to me. Other people might like just being like we're just throwing it all up in the air, and I would enjoy that, but then I need to be able to bring it in and not like be overwhelmed. So that's why I think for myself, although I haven't taken that with me on a vacation, but it was just coming to me as something that might help me kind of move out in the world in a way and find some stability in that sense of movement.
Yeah. And to add, the dill is one that Patricia Kaminsky always mentioned when teaching about the essences that she uses and recommends for travel. So much stimulation and all of that. So there's an integration of all these impressions that needs to happen. That would be maybe a default one for a travel combination.
Yeah, I think that was one that I was thinking of next for this quality of just being able to because there's so much new stimulus. You put yourself into a new environment and there's just tons of stimulus and what helps you to integrate all those stimulus and evaluate and be able to release and let go of all the things because you walk into a place and you don't know where your stuff is and for me, when I travel, it's like, where did I put this? It could be in one of 100 pockets. I don't know. So you're flailing and looking for something that's essential and being able to, take in all this new impulses of all the people that you run into and all the signs you have to read and like, how do I get from here to here? There's a lot to process. And you could definitely see how Dill would help you process that. And totally Shasta Daisy too. Because for me, I'm thinking like I was in an airport kind of recently, and it's like there's a lot of input here. There's a lot of things to read and to track and screens that are flashing, and like where do I go to here? And that for me, that's a Shasta Daisy thing to be able to be coherent.
Absolutely. The whole planning, you have to know, okay, I have to arrive X time in advance to go through security, etc. And then I go from here to there to the, I mean, all of that is really a Shasta Daisy, the whole orientation around places as well. Some people are easy with maps, with visualizing where they're going, but you have to learn everything, to navigate a place that is not familiar.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, and if you're traveling alone or with a partner, or if you're traveling with people that you're having to take care of, there's an extra piece of things that you have to process and keep track of all the time. Not only do you need to find where your luggage went, you need to keep track of the little people, or whoever is under your wing, as it were. So yeah, that is a lot of input to deal with, aside from having your field, good and rattled. And Lauren, you're bringing in the Euro environmental solution, and that seems to me to be a really good piece to bring in, to your travel, first aid kit, as it were. Yeah. I want to check back in with Sabine, followed up in the chat, that this environmental essence, Arunachala, the mountain, for deep rest, is from the Indigo Essences, which is a European company, and the mountain is in India. That's a new one from that line. I'm not familiar with that one yet, but gosh, there's so many beautiful essences from all over the world. It's a huge field, and we welcome it all. So thank you for bringing in one that I don't know anything about. Now we're all curious, and we're all going to check it out.
And I think it's really cool that we're coming up with a basic vacation kit here because it's like the Swiss Army knife, and we've got a few different knives here. We've got the purification, we've got the travel ease, we've got Shasta Daisy, the air environmental solution, and then the ones that are the favorites or the needed ones for each person. But these are kind of foundational ones for a travel kit.
Yeah, it's really cool to, you can have your very specialized travel kit. You have the basic ones that are good for lots of people. We've talked about a number of, Ruth, you and I were always like, what are the plant families that we're thinking of? We've mentioned the the Apiaceae with dill, which is also has angelica in that family, which makes sense to me in this context as well. And then we've talked about the Asteraceae, which, our yarrow environmental solution is largely comprised of Asteraceae, as well as the Shasta daisy, and the chamomile. And then I'm also thinking of the Lamiaceae family for this quality of once you get there, how do you drop into your body? How do you drop into the physical sensory experience of being where you are? And being able to, reset your digestion after all of the stress of, traveling. And, you do kind of have to be in your head and processing so many things. And I find the Lamiaceae to really help me like settle my nervous system after all of that input. So I was thinking of, motherwort was the one that I was thinking of first. And it's not as common of an essence, but I really like it for the jangled nervous system. You could be thinking of stinging nettle as well, for just sort of a tonic for the nervous system to help settle in. Would you think of maybe rosemary in this context as well, Ruth? That's not one that you'd be thinking of? Yeah.
It wouldn't come to my
Yeah.
mind, but
Yeah, I like it because, traveling is always, at least maybe this is me. We're getting into individualizations. But for me, traveling can often be accompanied by digestive upset. Like you're eating at weird times, you're eating weird things. It's like this isn't your normal routine. And I tend to express stress in my gut. And so for me, I think rosemary might be helpful to kind of keep that area warmed and calmed and centered, because when I travel, or when anyone is under stress, your digestion stops, slows down. You're not taking in food because you're not really resting. You're sitting in a little airline seat and you're like putting something in your mouth, but you're not really able to rest and relax and dial down your nervous system. So that's what I was thinking of. What's your thought, Ruth? That's maybe not your thing, but
I'm actually looking through the Lamiaceae because I think it's a great suggestion to have one essence from that collection. But
Japanese
What's
beauty
the
berry.
Yeah, exactly. I was looking and there's your yellow catnip, and tell us about the Japanese beauty berry.
Yeah, the Japanese beauty berry is really just like you're encased in this bubble of calm, even when there's swirl and chaos and everything going on around. And because it's part of that family, it has a very earthy, grounded physicality quality. It's not, encased in a bubble of psychic protection. It's like encased in a bubble of physical protection. You're really in your body and you're really feeling relaxed even when the kid is screaming or whether there's all this going on. You can still be in a peaceful state in the middle of it. Yeah.
That sounds like the best option for me amongst the Lamiaceae.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there other families that you're thinking of? I was kind of thinking like when we were, and it's not travel per se. This was more like the rest formula thing. But I was kind of thinking that Onongraceae family, thinking of the fireweeds and stuff for that integrative quality of when and this might even be on your way back, that you would be thinking of integrating all the experiences and all the, travel is enriching and you've seen things and heard things and met people that weren't part of your normal life, and how do you now arrive home and where do you put that stuff? How do you integrate that into your system?
Well, and the other thing that I would, even before integration, but that includes integration, I would say one of the things that we want when we take a vacation is to have some fun, right? And so having some fun and being able to be playful is certainly one ingredient in this travel combination that has to be there unless you are someone who has is always having fun anyway, but in the kind of lifestyles we have, perhaps the zinnia, of course, which also being a Asteraceae family flower also has the integrative part, but it's for this playfulness, for this ability to laugh and have a sense of humor and take things with a lightness, don't take things too seriously. Don't get bothered by the small things. So zinnia is one that immediately comes to mind. Also, the little flannel flower from the bush essences is a beautiful essence to consider. And it's also for that lightness and sense of humor.
Yeah. And even if, on whatever level, I appreciate what you're saying, whatever level of needing to take it a little bit more lightly, because, you know, you can either, you know, relax around the fact that your luggage got misdirected or, or have a fit about it and like, oh, okay, well, this is interesting. Let's see what happens now. So yeah, having that childlike flexibility around the change of plans and like, well, instead of that, let's go and hang out and have a snack, or go somewhere fun for a few hours while we wait for things to arrive. Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you, Ruth. So everyone who's with us, we have like 10 minutes left. And if you've been shy up till now and weren't quite ready to put your voice in, this might be a good time to add something that you're thinking of that your child part might want, for a little bit of fun and enjoyment, as you work with your flower essences. Or feel free to put it in the chat. I will be happy to read it out. Oh, and Kiara, thank you for posting in the chat. She says, I like Japanese anemone for joy. Yay. Me too. Yeah, and that is a really wonderful one for helping to kind of bring the lighter side to things. I tend to go more in the density, and yeah, I can always use a little reminder like, oh yeah, this could be fun too. Oh, good idea. Let's try that. So thanks for bringing Japanese anemone in. And Linda, is saying she likes olive for vacation and giving yourself permission to rest. So good. thank you. Yeah, that was one that I have on my list here of things to contemplate for vacation formulas, because it really does help you to like dig deep and restore and relax. I totally, now that I think, I mean, I've been around plenty of olive trees. I've grown up in a climate that olive grows well. But Ruth, bringing pictures back from Greece of those olive trees, I could never forget that image of just that scenic environment, but also a challenging one that they really have to be solid in themselves in order to survive, but also give so much. The olives. So beautiful. And that brings another family to the table. Woohoo! The Oleaceae, which includes jasmine. Doesn't seem like they are related, but the olive and the jasmine are both related. And I have a yellow jasmine in my Flora of Asia line that I really appreciate for helping to, like, for me, the timing around rest and activity is always something that I need to remind myself, like, no, now is not the time to go and do all that stuff. Now is the time just to relax. And the yellow jasmine helps you to figure out, like, is it time to engage and push or have some energy? Or is it now the time to sort of like, restore and drop back in and bring your levels back up? And I'll often use a jasmine with olive to reinforce on two levels, that message, because we do tend to, I mean, once again, maybe it's just me, like when you wake up one day and you feel a little bit of energy and you're like, yeah, let's go do this, let's knock out the list of to-dos, and then you just blow all your energy. Maybe we can learn to not exhaust ourselves every time, and build up a little reserve. It might be my growth curve. I don't know. Might be just me.
Not just you. That is just a really good choice. And thank you
Yeah.
for introducing me to a use of this yellow jasmine.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a trip, to think that those plants are related. That's why, this exploration with you, Ruth, of the families is so fun, because you draw these connections that you just would never otherwise even consider. The first time somebody told me that the olive, is in the same family with jasmine, I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. But there they are. There they are together. Yeah. Yeah, and Pierce is just writing in how much they've loved learning about this information for travel and being comfortable. So thank you. Welcome to this circle. It's really nice to hear from you, and we appreciate that you join us live. And also just a shout out to those who can't join us live. We know that life gets in the way of things, and we are always really happy that we're able to record this and put it up on YouTube pretty quickly afterwards. And we have a lot of people that pretty much exclusively join us in replay. So you are also really welcome here too, and we appreciate your interactions. We just had an email from one of our regular watchers. She's from Europe, and so she can't come and join us live, but we appreciate that you're here too, Sigrun. Does anyone else have another piece that they wanted to bring to this?
Yeah, I think intention is a good one. And if you're working with someone or just, making a selection just for yourself, try to articulate a few lines of what the intention is for this vacation, and then have a look at the essences, thinking of that intention, and pick up one or two that are representative of that. And for some, it may be like the zinnia, like the having some fun, or the Shasta daisy. I need some time to integrate everything that I'm going through, and I'm just going on a retreat that I can um, bring it all back together within myself. But some people may be going to a meditation retreat, and they have that intention, and they might want the lotus and essences for quieting the mind. Some people may want to think of essences such as white chestnut for the mind to be more relaxed and not keep thinking and over again about things, or even the California valerian from the FES is another one for a more carefree, relaxing time. But the essential intention is one of the things that I suggest you look into when you're formulating for your vacation.
Yeah, that's such a good point because there's so many different reasons to take a travel or there's certainly pilgrimages. You could be taking, a meditation vacation, or you could be taking a sensory vacation if you're traveling, I'm imagining, walking through the lavender fields or something like that, where you've got a real theme that you want to support. Um, and one other thing that your comment brought to mind is that sometimes our intentions can be a little big for the amount of space that we have for them. And that's a really good use of, a flower essence session before you go to really kind of unpack your hopes and dreams and expectations of what that time might be. Because I know that it definitely brings to mind a client I was working with, and she had a really intensive job and overwhelmed a lot of the times and a lot of responsibility. And she said, okay, I'm going to go on vacation, and I'm going to be meditating, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do some touring, and I'm going to do that. And like, and how long are you staying? 3 days. I'm like, okay, we might want to back that list of expectations to, one, maybe two of those things, because if you turn, a few days into like the packing of all the things that you don't get to do in your day-to-day life, you're going to be just as frustrated and exhausted when you get back. So it's useful to have a little reality check of like, what is your intention for this vacation? And make sure that it's in alignment. If you're going to be spending a lot of time with your family, probably not a meditation trip. You might get a little bit in there, but maybe not a lot. So yeah, that's a really good point.
And for the spray for the car with the
Mm.
kids, quaking grass, because that's really one for a group harmony, when you want people to be aware of the needs of everyone so that we can all be in a group in a more harmonious way.
Mm. Yeah, that's really good. Quit touching me. He's touching me. Yeah, perfect. And do you think the white violet or any of the violets might be helpful for that too? Because it's like the quaking grass is the group harmony, and the internal state of I've got enough space. The violets might be useful in that context as well to help you
Or the
feel.
corn, perhaps,
Ah.
instead of the violet
I was just thinking of Steve Johnson's. I think he has
concept
White
of
Violet
violet. Yeah.
in Travel Ease because he was talking about all the times that he'd be traveling to Japan, on these, big planes with, crying babies all over the place, and just feeling stressed and overwhelmed by all the compression. But yeah, corn. Like I would think of that if I was going to a city, or something like that. If I was doing like an urban vacation where you're sort of maybe out of a normal place and in a very high input environment and maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by that. Yeah, I like it. I like it. Well, thanks everyone for being part of this. It's been really fun. I'm glad that we've had this conversation. And I hope that thanks for being here live. Thanks for participating in the chat. It's been really great having you. And we'll be doing another one next month. The topics we always kind of come up with a week or so in advance because we like to feel the vibe of the place and see what's happening and what's needed. So if you are watching now or watching in out of sync time with us, and you have a thought of something you'd like to bring into this circle, please let us know because we would love to address it and love to talk about it. There are so many great possibilities. And thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate you.